Thank you, Mike. Yes, I do. I've been to Afghanistan. It wasn't too long ago I was there, and I sat at a table not too much different than this with President Karzai. And I had the opportunity in a polite way to say to him, and as he made it clear, he'd like for us to stay there for years and years. Well, it'd be an economic thing, for one thing. But we've been over there and done a good job. Our men and women in uniform have really, really done well. And we went through, a personal friend of mine is General Caldwell. He used to be the commandant down at the Command General Staff College just south of here, where I spent a couple of years of my time, is on the faculty there. But, we have shown them the way. And we're willing to train the Army, train their police, and they have a choice to make. Do they want to go forward and have the opportunities they can have now, or do they want to go back to where they were? They have to make that choice. We can't just stay. We've been there all these years. Thank heaven bin Laden is gone. I thank the President for taking the courage and the steps to get that done. We don't have to deal with that, and that's a big relief to those of us that are veterans, and I think the whole country, and that's a good thing. But yes, back to your question, do I support the plan to withdraw from Afghanistan? Yes, I do, and I am so proud of our Iowa National Guard and all the troops, the men and women, for the great job they've done that we've asked them to do. It's time to bring them home.
All right, thank you very much, Congressman. And now we go to Scott Batcher. Scott?
Yeah, I agree. We need to stop policing the world. That is not our mission, is to go into every country and pull our military in and, loss of life and costs and all of that stuff that go into a war and conflict or whatever they're calling it. I grew up in the Vietnam era, and the amount of money that we put into Vietnam and all of that, and I know many are war veterans from Vietnam. And I think that we need to pull out of these countries and monitor and keep our security up. And we don't need to be in each individual country like Afghanistan. The Taliban is going to find locations no matter where.
All right.
And for me, I just think that we need to pull our troops out of there and have the security of our country back.
All right, thank you very much, Scott. And now Congressman Tom Latham. Tom?
Thank you, Mike. And I think everyone will agree that our men and women in uniform have done an unbelievable job under very extraordinarily difficult conditions. I don't care whether it's in Iraq or Afghanistan, anywhere around the world. And their dedication and sacrifice, God bless them for everything that they've done for us. In Afghanistan today, quite honestly, with the rules of engagement that the administration has put on our soldiers who are in harm's way out there. If they capture somebody on the battlefield, we have to read them the U.S. rights. When you take them off a battlefield, they can't defend themselves, you can't attack, you can't be proactive, you have to be attacked before you can respond. Quite honestly, I think we should bring people home tomorrow if, in fact, we're going to continue with the rules of engagement as it is. And I've been to Afghanistan a couple different occasions, and they will tell you over there. And remember, the Russians, everyone else who has tried to be in Afghanistan, they will outweight you. Their slogan, or what they tell you, is that when you set a date, and it's not till 2014 is what the administration is saying as far as bringing our troops out, but what they will tell you is, you may have the watch, but we have the time. They will tell you, we will outweight you. And the Taliban, the Al-Qaeda, is still going to be very, very active. The way we need to address it, I think, is with covert operation. We have the opportunity with drones to really hold them down and do it that way.
Congressman, your time is up. Thank you. And now we go to David Rosenfeld.
The war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, the wars that the United States has carried out are wars to defend the profit and the strategic interests of the capitalist ruling class in this country. They have nothing to do with defending the interests of working people here or anywhere in the world. That's why I think that the U.S. troops need to come home now. There needs to be an immediate withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan and the garrison troops in Iraq. We also need to end forever the killer drone attacks, the assassination attacks from the sky. We need to close Guantanamo. We need to close Bagram. This is an affront to the rights that working people in this country cherish. that you could arrest somebody without charges, that you could hold them forever without charges or trial, that you could torture them. This has been the policy of Democrats and Republicans to carry this out, to trample the rights, the basic human rights of those that are in these facilities, and that we have no interest whatsoever in supporting this, and we have every interest in bringing a halt to it immediately.
All right, thank you very much, David. Our next question concerns some other hot spots in the world, namely Iran, Libya, and Syria. Now, the question is, would you support U.S. military action in countries like Iran, Libya, and Syria? Scott Batcher, you're up first in this question.
As I mentioned before in the Afghanistan statement, is we're not the world's police, and we need to let these countries do what they do and leave them alone. Bringing our military forces in there only adds problems to the situation. It doesn't cure anything. Because once we leave, they'll go back to their same old ways of doing how they lived years ago. You're trying to change hundreds of years of tradition in these societies, and our intervention is not going to help whatsoever. And I think it's a waste of money, it's a waste of our military talent and loss of lives to be able to go into these countries, especially when we're not even asked to come in, and we just impose ourselves upon them. I think we have to stop doing that, and we have to start really concentrating on our country and what we can do here for us.
All right, thank you, Scott. And now Congressman Tom Latham. Tom?
Well, I believe that for us to intervene, there would have to be a direct national interest, national security interest, for us to have any kind of military presence in those countries. When you look at Iran today, we have got to support Israel, who are threatened, certainly, and the stated purpose in Iran is to destroy Israel and the United States. And they have extraordinarily good intelligence. They can tell us when Iran gets to the point of a nuclear weapon, where their capabilities are there to be able to use it, and they will use it in Iran. But we've got to make sure that it's a very clear message. The United States stands with Israel. In Libya, I think we've seen dramatic failure, certainly to protect our ambassador and those other three great Americans who were murdered on September 11th of this year with no security, after they had been requested to have security several times through the State Department. Somebody has failed these people, and to put them in harm's way with no security is a national disgrace, and someone's got to be held accountable. We've got to get to the bottom of it and see exactly what happened, why there was no security there for those folks.
All right, thank you very much, Congressman. And now David Rosenfeld.
I like to put myself in the shoes of working people of Iran, of Libya, of Syria, of other countries, and ask what is in their interest? What would advance their interest? One thing that for sure cannot do that is military intervention on the part of an imperialist military force like the United States that would be defending the interests of the billionaire ruling class in this country. The workers in these countries need one thing above all. It's political space. It's the space to organize, to debate, to have civil discussion, to protest, to form unions, to struggle in their own behalf, and to test the different political currents and ideas that are out there. This cannot be accomplished through military intervention by the United States. This political space is also needed by working people in Israel. One thing I will say this is that working people have no interest whatsoever in nuclear weapons. The workers of Israel, of Iran, the United States. We don't need nuclear weapons. These are weapons that can only be used in one way, which is to kill and slaughter innocents in their millions. The United States has some experience with this. They carried this out in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. One thing that the attack in Libya shows is that any notion that the United States can achieve stability in this world through military intervention is ridiculous. And that we do face an increasingly unstable world, and that's the consequence of the course that this system is.
All right, David, thank you very much. And now we go to Congressman Leonard Boswell. Leonard?
Well, thank you, Mike. Well, I would agree with Congressman Latham in the fact that I support Israel. do, and I think that we must do that. I served a term on the Intel Committee, which has oversight on a lot of the things that goes on with the gathering of intelligence and around the world, and we have to think about doing the support for Israel. Absolutely. Iran. If we're concerned about them developing a weapon, which I think we are, and should be, I would submit that the countries that live right in that region around there would have a lot bigger concern. I know something about nuclear weapons. I was trained in that years past. And if we're concerned, they ought to be more so. And so the sanctions, I think, are working. I think we ought to pick them up, we ought to push them harder, and be sure that we do everything we can to go to conflict as a last resort. But I don't think we can stand by and let them have a nuclear weapon, because I think that it's pretty clear what they would do with it, and we can't let that happen. And it looks to me like that Israel will take the lead on that, so we support Israel. And Syria, I met Assad some years ago, and I can tell you talk about ICE, that individual to allow the people of his own country to go through what they're going through is almost unconscionable. But it's happening, and I think that we ought to, again, do the same thing with the sanctions.
All right, Congressman, thank you very much. This next round of questions, in the remaining time that we have in this debate tonight, we're going to try to get to know you fellers a little bit better as people, if we could. This question, the public approval of Congress is at or near historic lows. In your view, why is that? And then, could you give us an example of how you either have made a difference or proposed to make a difference as either a congressman or as a private citizen? Congressman Tom Latham, you get to go first on this one.
Well, thank you, Mike. And, it is extremely frustrating for me, as it is for the constituents out there, to see the lack of activity, lack of progress in Washington. And that's when I say we've got to put people before politics, we've got to put progress before partisanism, and we've got to make sure that we're working for the American people. And to me, that means listening at home. That's why I've done over 500 town hall meetings. I have continuous meetings with constituents to listen to them, to bring their ideas, their thoughts to Washington. And I think that's opposite of what a lot of other representatives do. They try to put Washington on top of us. But the frustration that I have, certainly is when we do things on a bipartisan basis, no one notices. We've got the 24-hour news cycles going on with the cable news, where you've got to have a breaking headline every 15 minutes. We have all these outside groups that come in and make threats to people if you do this, or you're going to be held accountable somehow. And that's just not the way the system should be. I work on the Appropriations Committee. I'm a chairman of a subcommittee. We work on a bipartisan basis all the time. We have to pass bills, and we passed my bill this year that I chair in Transportation and HUD by the largest bipartisan vote of all the appropriation bills, and that's what we've got to have.
Okay, Congressman, thank you very much. And David Rosenfeld, your thoughts on this?
Oh, isn't it funny how all the politicians talk about the need for civility, working across the aisle and all the rest, and yet we know the reality is the exact opposite. I think that there's an explanation for this. It's that we're in the midst of a historic economic and social crisis, one in which those that the politicians represent have no confident road forward out of that crisis. They agree on trying to defend the profits of big business, but there's no road out. And so in this, that while they have fundamental agreements, you see a coarsening of the political discourse. And incivility doesn't really cover what it's more like a pornographication of politics, a rise of demagogy, and an appeal to nationalism. These are the things that mark politics, capitalist politics, more and more and more. And I don't think that there's a road out of it other than the working class beginning to organize itself politically, a class, the only class really that has an interest in telling the truth. Because when politicians want the votes of working people and yet represent the interests of the rich, they can't tell the truth. There's a built-in lie that they have to always find a way to repackage.